Welcome everyone as you're tuning in. Thank you for joining us today. Feel free to hop into the chat. Tell us where you're tuning in from. We'd love to know. Fun. Oh my gosh, we got people from all over: Oregon, Chicago, Delaware, Arizona, Pittsburgh, PA. We got anyone from South Carolina yet? That's where Brittany's from, or New York. Hi, everyone. We're going to give it just a couple more minutes and let everyone join in.
Yeah, it is going to be 90 here today. What about y'all in New York?
Oh, 90. You know what? When I checked about an hour ago, it was already 80. So pretty steamy in New York as well. It's going to be a hot day. I'll be hanging out inside in the AC.
That's what life is here in the summer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I love it. And you know what? I think it'd also be fun while we're waiting for everyone to tune in. I don't have it set up as a poll question, but would love to see you guys drop it in the chat if you're currently a solo practitioner, or if you've already hired your first person, if you've already dipped your toes into the group practice realm. So interesting to see who we have here. A lot of solo. A couple of groups. Jen, you've got 2. Wendy has 5. Awesome.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Wow. Well, welcome. Everyone's welcome, no matter what size your business is right now. Very cool. All right, so a couple of things just to kick us off here today. I am going to make a mention. I already see some people are waiting on credentialing, which is Brittany's practice is cash-based, and really what we're going to be covering today, talking about groups, is really going to be more relevant in the cash-based space. If you are a group practice that's going to be heavily insurance-based, not that you can't take any words of wisdom today from Brittany, but there is another webinar that is already recorded and available for download on the Healthie website. It's gethealthy.com/guides. You can find it there, and it is on insurance credentialing and billing for group practices. So for that webinar, we had a biller chat with us and share all of her wisdom on making that step and important billing and credentialing aspects. So we're not going to be covering credentialing and billing today in this webinar. I will include that link as well in the webinar replay. So yes, okay, so getting started, introducing myself, I am Stephanie. I am here from Healthie, and today we're gonna be speaking with Brittany Jones. Brittany is from South Carolina, and from Greenville, South Carolina. She started her practice in 2017, and then 2 years later, she expanded into her group practice. Brittany Jones Nutrition Group now has 4 dietitians and an administrative assistant. She sees clients virtually and in person. And why we have Brittany here is because she is awesome. I have known her for years. She is super fantastic, and I've seen her practice grow from solo to group practice. And I think that Brittany just has so much wisdom to share. And I feel like so many times as dietitians, my background is dietitian as well, is that we feel like we have to learn everything on our own. We don't have anyone to ask. We figure it all out, all the legal, all the business, all the admin. And wouldn't it just be better if we could ask someone who's been through it, go through it, and share their wisdom with us? And that's really what this webinar is about. So if you are here about, looking to expand your practice, you want to become a group practice, or you're already a group practice and you want to just make sure you have things sort of set up right, if you're managing correctly, we're going to be touching on all of those topics today. So we're a little loosey-goosey in our structure. It's going to be a lot of just questions back and forth for Brittany. If you all have questions, please pop it into the Q&A, and we will save time for your questions at the end. So chat's going to be a little hard for us to moderate today. There is no PowerPoint. This is a little bit more like more of a podcast you can listen through. The recording will be sent out later. So if you can't stay tuned for the whole thing today, don't worry about it. We'll send out the recording, but it's a lot of questions that we've compiled that we know people ask when they're starting up a group practice, and Brittany's going to be answering those questions and sharing her personal insights there. Cool. So if you got any questions, pop it into the Q&A. And then lastly, just to note, while we're going to be discussing some legal and financial guidance, this is not considered legal advice. So please, every business needs to follow their own local and state regulations, and always check in with your business attorney as recommended. Let's see. Okay, so just quick question. Can we discuss contracts for associates? We are going to talk about, hiring, whether it's an employee or a contractor. We're not going to be talking about specific rates, like what you're going to pay someone to work with you, but we are going to just talk about how to go through that hiring process. All right, so Brittany, let's kick it off. Let's jump in. Why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself, your practice, and how you came to realize that a group practice and hiring was the next logical step for your business.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Stephanie, so much for having me and for Healthie, for all of your help and support in growing my practice. I started with Healthie, I'll say in the beginning when I started as a solo practitioner. And when they launched the group practice, I was like, oh, this would be really easy to be able to do this. This is what I want to do moving forward. So it's been a really seamless process there. And they've been really super helpful with scheduling and billing and sharing and all that kind of stuff. So a little bit about me. I'm a registered dietitian in Greenville, South Carolina. I will be an RD for 10 years this year. And I will say that I had a really non-traditional path. Anybody who's an RD probably has heard, like, spend some time in inpatient clinical and then move on to XYZ. I never did that. I have a really non-traditional background, from startup companies to working in food service to working in content marketing management for a boutique fitness company. So I have a lot of different experiences.
I get that.
Yeah. So it was not traditional ever. So I will throw that out there, but kind of came about with group practice and starting my own private practice. When I was working in a job, I was actually the dietitian at BMW, which is local here in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And what happened was, I always knew that I wanted a family. For those of y'all that follow me on Instagram at Brittany Jones RD, you probably have seen my son on there. I have a 7-month-old Cassian. And I always knew that I wanted to be a mom, and I knew I wanted to build my own schedule. So, while I was working at BMW, something actually happened. My dog got hit by a car, and we had to take her to appointments and all this kind of stuff. And I realized, like, hey, it would be really important to have a flexible schedule here, because they were very like, you're going to work 9 to 5, even if you have nothing to do. And that just didn't really work well with me. So I started, building the business on nights and weekends. And as many of you, I'm sure, have done too. And that it's a labor of love, and it doesn't feel like work because you love it so much, but eventually came to a breaking point of, I'm doing this full time, and then did that for a year before starting on group. So kind of, why I went into group practice is we love this area. We love the Greenville area. And there are not a lot of other dietitians in private practice here. And I was just experiencing myself not really having those referrals. So really, knowing that I needed to grow a practice here to better serve our community, that is part of our mission, to be the nutrition experts in upstate South Carolina. We want to provide that. And with that mission, we even offer like scholarships. We do a lot of sliding scale pricing. We also do a lot of community events, things like that, because that is part of our mission. So why I wanted to expand, definitely had demand there for sure, but also we wanted to be able to serve the community, because I really didn't have anywhere to refer. So we just decided to kind of bring that in-house.
And that's super fantastic, just to hear that you're filling a need that your community has and bringing quality nutrition services and affordable care to your area. Can you tell us, Brittany, are there any telltale signs for solo practitioners that it may be time to hire? And essentially, how does a solo practitioner know that it's the next logical step for them?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned, I have worked in marketing in the past. I have my master's in health communications, and I think that there was a lot that I wanted to do for my business, and I just didn't have time to do it. Like I found myself working in my business and not having time to work on my business. Like in the back of my head, I knew what I should be doing. I knew when I worked for that boutique fitness company that we were sending out newsletters every other Thursday, that we were, we had this social media strategy, we had all of these other things in place, and I just couldn't do those things. So I kind of realized that I was working in it too much. I didn't have enough time to work on it. And I knew that I could grow the business if I had time to work on it.
Hmm.
That was one thing. And then also not having scope. So again, I kind of mentioned in the Greenville area, there really is only one other practice that I would be able to refer to. That has a private practice here. And even the hospitals, like they didn't have a ton of options either. So if I didn't have a certain scope, so the scope being, eating disorders or diabetes or sports, I didn't really have anywhere to send. So that's kind of one of the things that spurred me to bring people on as well, is so we could be this, again, nutrition hub for our area here in Greenville, South Carolina, though I will say we see people virtually too. So we could, meet that demand, meet that need, be able to share that with the community. Again, even if it's going out and doing group classes. So yeah, I would say scope, more time working in the business than on it. And, I'm sure all of you that are watching this kind of can relate with this, working around the clock. Like that's a telltale sign, right? Like just having so many, things going on, so many people coming in, feeling like you are on this constant treadmill and that there isn't a way to slow it down. That's definitely how I felt. And then, thinking that I wanted to start a family, I was like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work for me. Something's got to give. I have to make this flexible for my schedule and for my family and what, I personally wanted as well. That was a lot of, what was a driver for me, though everybody's reason, of course, is different. More vacations, more time with friends, things like that too. All of those reasons. So you're not working all the time.
I think those are some really valid points, and honing in on the scope, I think, is really important as well, and that's a strategy for building out your practice in a different way. And something we'll probably touch a little bit more on when we're talking about hiring, but also the hours, the number of hours in a day. And I think it's really important to have an honest conversation with yourself as a business owner to think about, you can only counsel so many hours a week. It's physically and emotionally impossible to counsel, really, a full 40 hours. Most practitioners I know in practice are not doing 40 hours worth of counseling, right? You still need that time to run your business, to do the admin and the back end work.
Yeah.
And, it's, if you want more people to be able to be seen, to have this service for your community where they can see a practitioner, you're going to have to think about bringing somebody else on so that you can meet those hours.
Yes,
Right?
for sure. Bringing someone else on to meet those hours. And also, we'll talk about this too, moving forward, like setting boundaries for yourself, because yes, you'll get burned out for sure. I've been burned out in the past in some of my other jobs, and I knew I didn't want to go there. So that was definitely a telltale sign.
Yeah, for sure. And for sure. And we know patients, a lot of times they expect weekend hours and evening hours before work, after work, so that they can, be seen when it's really convenient for them too. So really being able to expand your schedule of hours and meeting that need there.
Yeah.
So I think all really valid points when you're like, am I at the point to be able to take on somebody else? And is that the right next step for me?
Yeah.
We've talked about, Brittany, scaling a practice, and I feel like it's just such a word that we hear, and we throw it around pretty loosely, like scale your practice, grow your practice. What for you, what does scaling your practice even mean, and how would you define it?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of was at a point where I knew that I needed to scale when I was at that point of like, I'm going to burn out if I keep going down this path, or I'm not going to be able to, I was working on vacations. I was stressing out about taking vacations. Like I was at the point where I was like, well, if I raise my prices, I'm not going to be able to meet that goal of serving the community. If I raise, prices to this amount, that sort of thing. So I really considered scaling my practice to mean building it up in a way where you don't need to do it all yourself. And it is really setting those boundaries and letting go of the control, but also, wanting to train others. I will say a big driver for me too is, again, Greenville, South Carolina, most of y'all have probably never even heard of that town before. It's not huge. And I'm originally from New York, and I just had friends, you know, working in other places, and they were just having better opportunities or getting better pay rates. And I was just like, there's not a lot here. So I did want to offer that in my community as well. So I really, you know, wanted to bring it to a place where I could have help. So it could be, you know, in terms of not doing it all yourself, it could be bringing on the admin assistant. It could be bringing on, you know, other practitioners. The other thing too, that we hear a lot with scaling is doing a course, or, you know, having something that's automated. So something that's kind of passive income. So I kind of think of scaling as working smarter, not harder. So working harder would be doing more nights, more weekends, you know, keeping a waiting list. And then if someone cancels, calling that person and scheduling them in, and, you know, just keeping this constant thing going, versus working smarter and not as hard. So working smarter being automating things, you know, doing a course or doing a group, or, you know, hiring an admin assistant, hiring more practitioners, kind of moving from that model of, you know, you mentioned counseling. If you're counseling, moving from that model of trading time for money to more passive income. So again, it can be in a variety of ways. And I've done a couple of different things before hiring. Like I had cookbooks that were online, you know, I was doing groups and things like that. But really, I found in the feedback from people that they wanted more of that one-on-one. And they actually, and where I am, everybody wants to meet in person. You know, it was a little bit different with the pandemic, and it was great that we could shift with Healthie to just go virtual. It was a non-issue. Like it was just already built in. But, you know, afterwards people are coming back in, you know, we're still doing masks and protocols and everything, but this is a word of mouth town and an in-person town. So I kind of knew that was the right step for me, was hiring, you know, employees and contractors to help duplicate myself essentially.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is, right? You can only counsel so many and be one in sessions one-on-one with so many clients. So being able to duplicate yourself and have others do so, really smart move. And I love that you included, you know, scaling that. There are different ways to scale your practice, especially with going automated and building ways to create passive income. I think that's a whole topic on its own, a whole webinar on its own. And, you know, I just really encourage, I think it's so smart if you're a solo practitioner and you know, are maxed out with your time, there are other ways that you can continue to make money and create other revenue streams. So, you know, I think automated and passive income are the future for nutrition practices.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's talk about moving into like legal considerations, which I'm sure is a big, you know, on the mind for a lot of solo practitioners, whether you're a sole proprietorship or an LLC, just thinking about legally becoming a group practice. What were some of the first steps that you took, Brittany, there? Did you hire a lawyer, and what did that look like?
Yeah, definitely. So to back up a little bit, to kind of move to group practice. And when I moved to group practice, I actually rebranded. I used to have a different name. So I did a rebranding. I was moving to group practice. There were big moves happening. So I actually chose to work with a business coach. And this is, you know, she said, you need a team, and the team that you need, I would say business coach is one of them, or mentor, and or both. And again, I was doing a rebrand too. So there was some marketing and all of that involved. You need a lawyer and you need an accountant. And when it came to a lawyer, I was like, okay, I need a lawyer, and I need a lawyer to do these contracts for the people I'm going to bring on. At the time, I already had one person that I knew I was going to bring on right away as a contract dietitian, but I knew I wanted an employee. So I knew that I actually needed a couple of different contracts on different timelines and a handbook. So I actually went ahead and hired an employment lawyer because she specialized in doing those contracts for, you know, contract RDs, employees. So whether it's a 1099 W-2, she wrote my employee handbook. And then she also did non-disclosure for the contract employees and non-compete for my employees. So she wrote a variety of things, and that's what she specialized in. Also, I knew that if anything ever happened, if a contractor, you know, ever tried to sue the practice, if anything ever happened in terms of employment law, that she would be the person going to court for me. So I looked specifically for an employment lawyer, and turns out I knew one. So I started looking on a Facebook group. It's just called Greenville Young Professionals. And someone put on, her name is Ashley. And I was like, oh, I know Ashley. So I felt really comfortable with her. She's actually a partner in the practice now. So it's been kind of cool, to support local and kind of see her career grow too, but also work with her early on. Like now I'm working with a partner of the practice, but she was a new lawyer when we started. She also was able to answer questions and go to if anything happens. So like if I have any questions, like for example, in Virginia, I talk with a dietitian that I'm friends with from undergrad, and she's in Virginia. And she said, Virginia law has everybody moving from contractor to employee. Like, do you guys have to do this? So I'm like, I don't know. So I asked Ashley, and she's like, nope, not in South Carolina. I don't ever see that happening. So it's just good to have someone to go to ask those questions. Or if anything comes up, or if you are ever like, well, I want to take this employee from a W-2 back to a 1099. Do I need to do anything in specific? She also, in addition to the contracts, handbooks, all that jazz, she told me what to do in terms of an offer. So every state's different. Like some states require an offer letter. Some states don't. We're also a right to work state. So she told me, what that means. And she told me that I'm from New York originally, so it's not like this in New York. She's like, you could fire someone for using the wrong color pen. I didn't know that. I would never do that. But, the definition of what a right to work state is. So she kind of gave me the info on, what the laws are here. You don't need an offer letter. And then she actually sent me the terms of employment that we do need in South Carolina. So she sent me that form, told me to fill it out, told me where to send it. And she's like, if you ever get audited, this is what you need. So it just gave me such peace of mind. And again, she's still there and we're still in communication if anything comes up. But it was just so helpful to have an expert in employment law when I was expanding to be a group practice.
And I find that so interesting because we generally know, hey, we need an accountant, we need a business attorney, but there are specialists that can really help you. And probably, even more, there's intellectual property specialists, lawyers. So if you are branding and, want to copyright or trademark or anything like that, there are these different types of experts out there. And I guess one thing I want, other dietitians to know is like, you're not alone and you don't have to be an expert in everything. You just need to make sure you're bringing on the right people to consult and help you with your practice so that you're protected, because this is your business. And first and foremost, you need to protect yourself and your business. So important. There's a couple things. So based on I really want to talk about employee versus contracts, but you mentioned having an employee handbook, and I am so curious, what are sort of the type of things that are included in your employee handbook?
Yeah. So I had the lawyer help with the employee handbook. And I think most lawyers typically do, and other dietitians that I've talked with as well. Things that I have in employee handbook are just like company policies. And y'all, if you're working other jobs or if you've worked other jobs in the past, like think about what was in your handbooks in the past and what you read and went for, including things like vacation or holidays or dress code, or in there, we also have information on scheduling and just everything that, we kind of have as our company mission policies to help run the business. But also a lot of my focus is always on customer service and having excellent customer service. So things that go into that. So that's kind of what we had in the handbook there. I'm trying to think of other things. It was quite lengthy. It kind of talked about, time tracking, like how to do that. We use Gusto is the one that we use, but there's a whole bunch like ADP and things out there, and I vetted them all out. So time tracking, when the time credits need to be, approved there, we have in there info on notes, like when notes need to be completed, they need to be completed within a week is kind of what I do. Any kind of, adhering to like cancellation policies, things like that.
I think such valid points. And these are things that probably we assume that people are going to know and follow, things like dress codes, right? And again, it comes back to protecting your business. And, I've seen lots of times on Facebook groups, for private practice, if you've hired someone and, recently I saw a post that their contractor left and she did not write her notes. And so now you as a business owner, you what are you supposed to do? You've got to bill insurance, or if more of a concern if you're billing insurance, right? These things, these expectations need to be set up in advance, whether it's in your contracts or an employee handbook. I think it's so smart to put that together, because now you're setting the expectations and you're protecting yourself and you're protecting your business.
Yeah, and to clarify, the employee handbook is only going to be for like W-2 employees. The contractors, we can say like, these are our policies, yada, yada, yada. We'll talk about the difference between the two. So you can't make them do anything, but, for employees, and I have, to be transparent, I have one employee right now, and the other 3 dietitians are contract, probably going to be shifting that to 2 and 2. And we can kind of talk about the differences and the reason why and so on and so forth. But the employee handbook being for those employees, and doing an orientation, we did I believe with Allison, we did like a 2-week full-on orientation, shadowing, going over the employee handbook, going over Healthie, that is always part of it, scheduling, setting up a call with the admin assistant so that they can get to know each other, like, this is this person, this is their specialty, this is their personality. So she knows how to pair people on the discovery calls, like clients with the dietitian. So we did set up an orientation for employees too. And that was in the handbook there as well.
So let's talk about it, because I'm curious, and let's talk about employees versus contractors. Again, everyone, this is not legal advice. This is just our personal experience and knowledge and know-how. So Brittany, as best as you can tell us, what's the difference between the two, and why do you have both? That's a really good question.
Totally. And again, this is just my personal experience and my opinion of why I have both. Everybody has a different reason. Huge thing that my lawyer did for me was send over the IRS checklist. So if y'all just Google, or I will put it in, I have it up right now, so I can put it in like the link here too in the chat. There's a 20-point IRS checklist that I highly recommend anyone who is watching this look up. So it is a 20-point checklist that tells you, in court, these are the things that need to hold up to say if they're an independent contractor, a 1099, or an employee, or a W-2. So basically, all in all, an independent contractor is someone that you bring in. They have their own LLC. You are technically their client. You are bringing an independent contractor. They have their own business. You are their client. And they are working on a certain project. In our case, it's usually like seeing sports dietetics clients, seeing diabetes clients. So, they are seeing certain people, they make their own schedule. They are not clocking in and out, absolutely not clocking in and out. They can work virtually or in person if that's an option, but it's totally up to them. So they decide who, they decide when, they decide how. They are independent contractors, you are their client. So that is kind of a big distinction there. They don't get an orientation. They are running their own thing and working with you. In terms of business cards, I will say the only case in South Carolina that I'm aware of that has won a case of contractor versus employee is business cards. So this is business card for one of my contract dietitians. It does not have my logo on it. She does not have an email that says her name at BrittanyJonesRD.com. Making sure that their business cards, they are their own business, you are their client. That is a really big distinction, and something that you'll want to watch out for, because those are some cases that can come up. And I've definitely heard that in the past from other dietitians of like, hey, they want to bring me on contract, but I have to wear a shirt with their logo. They have a dress code. I need to be there X hour to X hour. I'm getting paid this hourly rate. And I'll say you can't do an hourly rate, but anything that makes them look like an employee and you're just filing it differently to help with taxes. I mean, on independent contractors, you don't have to worry about employment taxes. You don't have to worry about payroll, services, anything like that. They invoice you, you pay them. So it is a simpler process, but you just can't treat them as an employee. Versus an employee would be someone that would get the handbook, that they have set hours. Like, you are here from 9 to 6 on this day, and you're here from 10 to 7 on this day, and so on and so forth. And we do chart reviews on this day, and your time card is due on this day, and payroll, and you have vacation, and yada, yada, yada. So I would say that's the biggest difference, is in the, I'm not saying this in a bad way, but in control. So you don't really have that control with an independent contractor. They do it their way. You're bringing them on to do their own thing. Does that kind of make sense?
That makes a ton of sense. And it's very interesting, because I've been an independent contractor for group practice in the past. Very, very interesting. I wish I had known all of this, although I had great experiences. But
But look up the
tell me,
checklist. It's going to be
yeah,
super
look at it.
helpful.
That is super good to know. I'm also curious, have you ever done like a non-compete with any
Yeah, that's a good point.
contractors? Because that's a big
You
concern. You're
can't.
gonna okay.
Yeah. So with a contractor, you cannot do a non-compete. Again, I learned this from my employment lawyer.
Hmm.
You can't do a non-compete with an independent contractor, but you can do it with an employee. So if you are looking to do a non-compete, if you're looking to have more of that control, if you're looking for someone to wear your branded shirt, to make them business cards, to give them their own email address, to have them do a time card, all of that stuff, that's going to be more of an employee.
Hmm.
Versus anybody who, is going to be an independent contractor is not going to have those same things there.
I think and this is why we also encourage all of you to be in touch with your local, like locally, have your own lawyer, employment lawyer. While some of this may be across the board, sort of federally, I think that there's also, perhaps there's some different regulations in your state as well. So again, like this is all such good information, but also make sure you're finding out locally if it's anything different in your state, in your area.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. And yes, the IRS is obviously federal, but if there's anything locally, like I mentioned, the South Carolina case, those are the things that your employment lawyer is going to be able to say. And again, it's just to protect your business, because if anyone ever files against you saying, they made me a business card with the logo on it, I was acting as an employee, that's something they could sue you for. So you just want to make sure to have that distinction. The contractors don't necessarily have an orientation, because you should be bringing them on as an expert. Like you shouldn't have to train them on how to be a CDE. They should already be a CDE, and kind of bring them on in that way.
So we've sort of talked about the legal aspect of it, but let's also talk about finding the right financial business structure as you transition from solo to group practice. Can you share any expectations with us and what resources you use to help find the right financial structure for your business?
Yeah. One more thing that I don't think I answered your
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I
No,
kind
it's
of
okay.
have mom brain still. Distinction between contractors, non-disclosure, and employee is non-compete. So just talk to y'all's lawyers about that. In terms of, financial, I would say getting an accountant and a really good payroll system. So I kind of mentioned that we use Gusto. I don't use Gusto for my contractors. You can. I just have them invoice me, and that works best for me. But you could pay them through there if you want to. What's great about these payroll systems, if you do have employees, again, you're going to be paying their taxes, right? You're going to be paying unemployment insurance. You're going to be paying the taxes that a business has to pay on an employee. That's why they're paid different than independent contractors. So setting up a good system, I really love it too, because they do all my tax forms. So when I send my stuff to my accountant, again, highly recommend an accountant, especially, if you are an LLC and you are, filing as such, it can get really complicated. So he just took all the forms, submitted them. I just sent them from Gusto. He actually I can add him on as access as my accountant to Gusto, which is great. They also, as an accountant, can give you advice. Like I just mentioned LLC. We are an LLC, but I asked, should we be an S Corp? Should we be something different? Like your accountant can give you advice on your goals, where you're going, and what makes most sense for you. So having an accountant that is a CPA that can help with these decisions is going to be huge. Personally, if you want a financial advisor as well, or if you have a financial advisor that's also a CPA, that would be great to kind of help strategize where to go. We have a financial advisor, a personal financial advisor, who helped me set up, a not a 401k. What am I trying to say? A Roth IRA. So, that could be an additional benefit for employees. So you can work with a financial advisor to set up those retirement accounts if you want to do that. And then having a CPA too, to help with the classification of your business, with any taxes. I did want to mention to y'all, I didn't tell you this yet, Stephanie, but 2 weeks ago, we got audited by South Carolina. So we got
Whoa, like the
audited
state of,
yes.
which is, I think, different than if you're going through an insurance audit. If you're going through an insurance audit, that's
Yes.
like, like Blue Cross Blue Shield is auditing you and wants your
This
notes and
was,
make sure. Yeah.
Department of Employment
Whoa.
audit. Yep. And it was a day that we left for vacation, and everything
Of course it was, naturally.
Yep. And everything was due the day that I got back from vacation. So when on earth would I have had time to do this? Right. And, so what I did is I reached out to my accountant. I was like, hey, I'm literally going on vacation today. Can you help with this? Again, he already had access to everything. He pretty much did it for me, which was amazing. We passed the audit. We got
So
a
I know,
letter
good
passing,
advice from Brittany.
and
Also.
everything is good. But that's why you want to have that person on your team, because you are going to live your life and this stuff is going to happen. It's always like this 1-2 punch, right? You do something personal and you get punched with something business. So at least it always does to me. So having that person on your team to reach out to say like, hey, can you help with this? And then keeping good records, y'all. I want to tell you that, I had the accountant help, but I had the auditor ask me for my contracts. So I had to send those employment contracts for the contractors and the employees, the terms of employment. I had to send invoices from my independent contractors. Like, he audited all of these things. So be really, really diligent about keeping a file. I have a file on my computer. I keep all the invoices. I keep all the contracts, terms of employment, updating, don't let contracts go expired, updating when they do expire and renegotiate and whatnot. But keeping all of that on hand is huge.
That is all good to know. And is there anything else that you would add in there? Because I know we've already gotten some questions. So apart from contracts, invoices, anything else specifically that they were requesting from your audit?
Yeah, so the tax forms from Gusto essentially is where they pulled them all from. And then the Schedule C, which was from my tax returns, which, full disclosure, there was an extension this year and we bought a house and had a baby. So we took the extension. So we just finished that, thank God. So, again, having that accountant to help you with your Schedule C and to help with these different tax forms that you have, like for your 1099s, for your W-2s, my accountant and my payroll system together gave me the core, and then my employment lawyer helped me with the contracts. And then y'all just make sure you get physical invoices from people so you can have them on file and send them.
Very
So
good
that was a big one.
And, that's sort of just a testament to why is doing this right. And I've seen businesses set up, like you just want to hit the ground running. You just want to bring someone on. You're not going to worry so much about insurance or having the right contracts in place. Guys, you got to protect your business and you got to protect yourselves, because things like audits do happen. And it's really important to just structurally set your business up properly and have contracts in place and just do it the right way with the right legal help, because it's only going to benefit you in the end.
Yeah. And again, you don't have to do it all yourself, have a team, but this is the benefit of having that team, is that you don't have to do it all yourself.
So perfect segue, because my next question is about your team. Tell us about how, like, building your team composition and how have you built out your team and thought about, adding, your hires to your team?
Yeah. So personally, I was working with a business coach and just kind of said I wanted to grow, and I don't know if I should do contract versus employee. I know contract is easier, you don't have all these tax implications and so on and so forth. But I knew that I needed help. And I knew that I was going to be out on maternity leave one day. I wasn't pregnant when I started this, but I knew that personally was something I wanted. Again, if you were like, I want to take a vacation to Europe for a month every single year, and I don't want to just close my business, I want it to run itself, right? So I was looking for my business to run itself for at least 4 months. And I talked to my business coach and she said, to do that, you're going to have to be looking at an employee. So I chose to start with that. So to start with hiring an employee to literally duplicate myself, to work in the programs that I work in. And again, distinction between employee and contractor. The employee is doing what I do. A contractor is doing what I don't do. So this person was coming in, working in the same programs that we have, utilizing logging and Healthie, utilizing, making meal plans, utilizing all of the same things. And then it eventually grew to her being our lead RD. So it was only like 3 months till I promoted her to lead RD as I built out my contract team. And my contractors consist of someone who's a CDE, kind of alluded to this, and she works with diabetes, something that none of us do otherwise, and a sports dietitian, again, something else that none of us do otherwise. So she is kind of in our tier, it's kind of like I'm up at the top, we have a lead RD, and then she's over the contractors and interns. And we talk about this in team meetings and when we, meet in interviews, just how the structure works of, day-to-day stuff will go to our lead RD, and then anything more top level, whether it's regarding payment or, client package cancellations or new business clients. We just landed a contract with a big university here with being their dietitian, which is huge. All that kind of stuff goes to me, but day to day, like, hey, how do I set up my schedule in Healthie? Like that can be more the lead dietitian. So that's kind of how I set it up, and how I chose to grow it is I needed help myself to duplicate myself on maternity leave, and anybody else who has a newborn, those months afterwards too, to kind of help in that way too, to have another go-to person in the case that I'm out. So I wasn't working on maternity leave, and so I didn't just have to close my business for those 4 months.
Yeah, I think all of that is just such valid points. And you've also brought on an administrative assistant, right, to help in the office.
Yes.
And one thing I want to talk about, because we have a few minutes, because I want to jump into our Q&A, I want to talk about being a manager, right? And how that plays a role in building a group practice, and, what being a manager of your practice means. And like, do you have to be a manager, or can you also just see your clients and continue to do, deliver care? Because I think that's a big thing as well. A lot of dietitians, you get into private practice because you want to counsel, and if you have all this sort of business responsibilities, then you don't have time to, or you give up time counseling. So can you just talk a little bit about how that structure works and what being a manager entails?
Yeah, what I will say is, you can be a manager if you want, or you don't have to. It's your business. You do you. Feel what your strong points are and what way you want to grow as a practitioner, as a business owner, as an individual. I kind of mentioned that it was a big passion of mine to bring quality dietitian jobs to this area because I just wasn't seeing it. And I wanted to be a manager. That's something that I wanted to do. So I had actually took a step back from counseling so I could block my time. I right now I'm working 2 days a week, and I have half days each day. Like right now, Friday mornings is my admin time, my manager time, my business owner time, right? And then this afternoon I'm booked with clients. So that's how I kind of approached it in the way that I wanted to do it. But you don't have to. If you are someone who is like, I really want my name on the door, and I really want to keep seeing clients and being, this, tier 1 practitioner, you can definitely do that, and then hire your lead or hire your admin assistant or hire a marketing, person to help out with everything else. So you can really play it whichever way you want to. It's just about building that team. If you want to do more of management and continue to grow your skills that way, it's blocking counseling time and hiring people to help with counseling. If you want to do counseling, it's hiring an admin assistant, it's hiring a social media person, which might be an intern. It's hiring someone to do your website. It just kind of depends on your passion and what direction you want to go. But also, it doesn't have to be like that forever. So if you want to flip back the other way, you can do that too. But just, again, kind of honing in on your strengths and then hiring out for the things that either you don't want to do or that you feel like you're not as good at.
Something that, we've talked about and you do super fantastic in your practice is, engaging and training with your staff. Let's talk about that aspect of management and really how you focus on training and retention of your staff, which I think is a really big, because you don't want a lot of turnaround. You don't want a huge amount of turnaround in your practice. So what are some things that you put into place to really retain the dietitians on your staff?
Yeah, for sure. That is something that's really important to me, just to retain the right people, to hire the right people, to have the right team. And it is something that I definitely make a priority to do as a manager. So something that I do with everyone. So what I will say is employees, I can mandate this. Contractors, it's optional, but all of my contractors choose to do it because it's me investing in them, is quarterly meetings. So we do quarterly self-evals, and everyone sets goals, both personal and professional goals. And we sit down and we talk through those goals, and we set up ways to get there. And we meet every quarter and we evaluate how they went, and then we take it one step further. So an example there might be passing the CSSD exam for sports dietetics. Like, okay, what do we need to do? How many hours are you at? How many more hours do you want? How many new clients do you want every single month? How are we going to get there? Who are we going to talk to? Like, we strategize with that. I have another dietitian that's like, I really want to, develop more in the intuitive eating space. Great. Like, what can we look up? What can we brainstorm? What kind of training can you do? That's good for me to know, because I'll put the right people with you. So, setting up these quarterly meetings, I've gotten great feedback on. We do monthly team meetings as well. Again, required for employees, optional for our contractors, because I can't make them do it, but if they find it beneficial for them, we can. And we kind of go over each program, we go over our goals, how it's all going, upcoming events, and then we just kind of brainstorm. I say, do you have any topics you want to talk about as a group, as a group of 5 dietitians? Like, what do you want everybody's feedback on, and how can we benefit each other? And then we do team outings. I was doing them once a quarter, and then, the pandemic happened. We did make candles at Christmas time. We went and made candles together, and that was our team activity. And we did it with masks on and the doors were open and yada, yada. But, we usually do events once per quarter. I think we're going to do like a summer barbecue or something here soon. So just kind of getting everybody together outside too. Not that it can be mandated for contractors, but I have found, at least with my dietitians that are contract, because it's an interest in them and they feel like they're getting something out of it, that they always want to attend, or they want to do that.
Brittany, thank you so much. You've just provided so much information. We have some really great questions. So if you want to transition into the Q&A, guys, we're going to get to some of your questions. There's still time. If you have a question, pop it into the Q&A box. So let's run through some of our questions here. Ashley has a really great question. We can't talk specifically about rates, like how much you pay, Brittany, but can you talk just a little bit about the difference in pay structures between employee, let's see, not rates. I'm sorry, one sec as I read through this question. Okay, so setting different rates for hourly rates versus commissions versus time seeing clients versus admin work. Right. Do you have sort of different rates that you set for the different work that you basically that a dietitian can do? And I remember doing that in practice as well. There was like, clients, rates for seeing clients, and also like rates for like doing marketing or like some other kind of social work, things like that.
Yeah,
you do that as well.
So how I approach it is with employees, they're just on an hourly rate. So it's just like, I guarantee this number of hours, and you can work up to this number of hours. And this is, what that looks like. And we kind of talk about, half of your hours being client time, and then the rest being admin or marketing or what it might be. So employees is kind of straight up. We do yearly evals too. That's something I should mention. So the yearly eval for contractors and employees. So the contractors, I've typically done my contracts for a year. I do 3 months, 6 months, 3 months initially, 6 months, and then a year. And that's a time to renegotiate rates, but also I do yearly evals for employees too. And I do a bonus program quarterly for employees as well that we came up with. So that's kind of how it looks on an employee side. In terms of contractor, I have packages, so I do it percentage based. So I say that the contractor gets X percentage, the business gets X percentage, and again, renegotiated at 3, 6, 12 months is kind of what we look at there. So having packages kind of makes it a little bit easier instead of like time logging and billing this and billing that. It just kind of makes it easier for invoicing. And then I do have in their contract that they get X amount for a marketing event, though I will say I try to send my employees to marketing events because it counts in their hours more so than contractors. But having packages, I do it as a percentage, and that's worked out really well. So it's kind of, instead of spending this much time on charting, this much time on counseling, it's based on each person. It's kind of up to the contractor to manage their own time. If you are charting efficiently, you're making more per hour versus if, it's taking longer or whatever, it'll be less per hour. So that's kind of how we do it. And that's worked out pretty well.
Another question along the lines of just finance. Ashley wants to know, how do you know if your business is financially healthy enough to hire, specifically if you're going to bring on an employee, guarantee them hours and time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, that's something to talk through with an accountant, with a mentor or a business coach. And I will say, shameless plug, I've started doing mentoring as well. So that's something that I can always talk through, individually, kind of looking at, goals and everything. Talk with your accountant about it to kind of see where you're at. You're looking at obviously what your income is, what your stream of income is in terms of clients, if it's any passive income, and how much you want to pay that person. And you also want to be looking at, how much it actually costs you per paycheck, because you're paying all those taxes too. So just kind of running the numbers to say like, hey, if I'm going to have this person on for 20 hours a week, this is how much it's going to cost me. Even though their paycheck will be less than that, it's going to cost you more for unemployment insurance and everything. This is how much it's going to cost me. This is how many people I would need to bring in. If you already have that number of clients and that income in, that's a safe bet. That's kind of how we did it, was kind of looking at what income we already had coming in to balance it out, and how many clients we would need to keep that person at that number of hours. We've never had an issue. I will throw that out there. We've never had an issue after running that number. So, but definitely talking with your accountant about it too, like what is your, break even. And what I will say is when you bring on employees, and my business coach told me this, you're probably not going to make anything yourself for the first couple of months. You need to pay for that employee and pay for their time as you get them started. So I didn't take a paycheck for the first 3 months. And then during COVID, when stuff went on, I, just like a lot of us, probably didn't get a paycheck during that time, but that's just kind of what we do as business owners. So, getting them up to speed, you might be putting more into them, but eventually you are going to make more with an employee than you do a contractor.
And I just want to touch on this. Carly had a question, and it's something I see asked a lot. And I think it's just a big barrier for dietitians, not knowing how much to charge for their counseling services. You cannot give us a number. Guys, we cannot tell you how much to charge for your services. Brittany, I know you worked with a business coach, which is probably helpful, and I've done the same. But just establishing the rates for your packages and your services. Could you just touch on that for a minute of how you came to your numbers?
Yeah, so we definitely did like an audit of there's not a lot of private practices in the area, but we did do an audit of, basically what the going rate was in the area and what they had to offer versus what our packages had to offer. And in my packages, I have one that is just nutrition counseling. I have one that's counseling and meal plans. I have one that's counseling, meal plans, logging. So it's kind of tiered. So I worked with a business coach on that. We did an audit, talked about, how do you value your time counseling versus how do you value that time that's more admin with meal plans and logging and everything, and kind of came up with a number. And for our packages, we do it monthly, or, if you pay up front, you get like a 5% discount or whatnot. So that kind of helps too.
Yeah, I think great answer. I've also done the same for my own pricing and mentoring other dietitians. It's thinking about the value that's going into that package. So there's counseling, but is there meal planning? Are you reading food journals? And how many hours of my time is it actually, am I going to commit to this package or this service, and really making sure that you're pricing to include the time. So you may just do an initial consultation, but if you're also going to be doing food journal reviews,
Right.
an hour every day, you need to include that time in your package. So
Yep,
little
for sure.
tidbits of advice there. Lisa wants to know, and I think this is a fantastic question. Brittany, you mentioned at the beginning you wanted to start a group because you wanted some, boundaries in a personal life and not to be working 24/7. However, it seems like running a group practice is more work. So how are you not working 24/7, and how has that management component helped you to have time off and take a vacation?
Yeah, totally. Great question. I have a good team. I have a really great team. My lead dietitian is amazing. And I tell her that regularly. Definitely need those affirmations. And we get that feedback from clients too. And we value her so much. So having that lead dietitian has really helped me do that, and passing it off. When I knew that I was going to go on maternity leave, those that follow me on Instagram, that, we've had a journey to having Cassian. We had a pregnancy loss early on. So I was like, when I got pregnant this time, I was like, I just need to tell everybody, because regardless of what happens, I'm going to need their help. So I just told everyone pretty early, and I wrote out everything I do, and I trained on everything that I did. And that has made it so much easier coming back to work as a new mom, because I can hand these things off, or they're more comfortably being trained. I mean, by the time I went out on maternity leave, I was asking those team meetings, like, what questions do you have? Like, what do we need to go over? And they were like, go, just go. Like, we're good. We've talked about this enough. So over communicate, overtrain, write down everything you do, and really see if it's something you need to do yourself or it's something you can train on. Like those sales calls, I love doing them. I'm back to doing them. They're one of my favorite things to do. But I knew that I didn't always need to be the person to do that. Even though I like doing it, I know that I could get help doing that as well. So now, even when I go on vacations, I'm not taking sales calls, I'm passing it off. Even though she doesn't do them all the time, I know it's something that she can do, she knows how to do, and she's had practice doing. So training was huge.
So what you're saying is to train, to trust, and to delegate, right?
Yes, delegate.
Guys, we can't control everything, right? You're going to have to trust the team that you're building and allow yourself to set those boundaries and know that things are going to run if you've stepped away because you've trained your team properly. So, train, trust, and delegate.
Yes. And block that time off.
Block that time off, no matter what you're doing. Time blocking, that's a whole conversation on its own. It's strategy, just how to be productive,
right?
Blocking time.
Yep.
A great question from Nicole. She's looking on to bring an administrative assistant, her first hire. Where does she begin? She's never hired someone before.
Yeah. So definitely, kind of reaching out, whether it's locally or, a lot of virtual assistants can do this work too. So finding someone, and I will say a lot of virtual assistants that I've, talked with or worked with in the past, they are typically contractors and they work with multiple businesses. And that actually is a huge benefit to you because they're talking to all different kinds of clients and they, have worked with other business owners and know how they do things and they can give tips and advice and all this kind of stuff. So, interviewing, I will say mine came to me. I put up a blog post about, I think it was like 2 years in business, 3 years in business and what I've learned thus far. And a virtual assistant read it and said, I saw that you sometimes work 80 to 100 hours a week. You don't need to do that. I can help you. So, being transparent can be helpful too. Mm-hmm. The right person might find you. But yeah, talking with them to see, if I'll say most of the time that they have been a contractor, but if it's going to be an employee, seeing, what you want help with, how you're going to train on those things that, again, you don't need to do that you can train someone else to do. Your time is more valuable, not answering every single email that comes through or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. We have a great question from Christina, specifically about Healthie, but Healthie does have a group practice, Christina, and she wants to know if you can see employee schedules. So you just talk about, just real quick, about how you manage the calendar and the scheduling for your hires.
Yeah. So all of my dietitians go in and kind of put in their own availabilities. I talk with my employee about, what we want that to look like, how many nights, yada, yada. But in Contractors, just go in and they set their availabilities, which is great. I don't need to ask them what it is. They do it themselves. And then there's an organization where you can see all the calendars right next to each other. So even when we're scheduling these team meetings, I can see, okay, everyone's free Friday at 1 and put something in there and then put it on everybody's calendar, which is great. But you can see them all next to each other, or you can click on a name and see their individual calendar if you want to see like their capacity, for example. And that's been super helpful. And they can schedule their own appointments too. You don't have to do it for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have a lot of control as a group practice in Healthie. If you're the administrator, you can control the settings as far as which each team member, what they can access, what they can see, what they can edit. And so you can add as many, team members as you want, or support accounts. So someone like a biller or an office administrator who should have specific access. So Healthie really is designed to scale. It's an EHR and a practice management platform, which means it has all of the tools you need to run your practice, and it is designed to scale up into group practices. And we have very large organizations using the platform as well, with tons and tons of employees. So if you have any questions, because we're at our time, we have 1 minute left, right? Brittany, we've had quite a few questions just asking about your mentorship or coaching. Would you mind sharing how to contact you if anyone has questions or is curious about your mentorship opportunities? Business coach.
For sure. So, would love to talk with any of you that are looking to scale your practice, whether it's hiring or, talk through more of systems to use. We didn't get to touch on things like Asana that we use for structures or realtors or anything like that. But I do mentoring for dietitians, dietetic interns, anyone who's looking to grow their practice or just go to a solo practice or kind of career coaching. So you can reach me on Instagram, I mentioned, at Brittany Jones RD, or my website is also Brittany Jones RD. And there's a contact form that you can contact on there, and we can set up a 30 or 60-minute call and kind of talk about your goals and start strategizing on how to get there. Also available to talk through woes too. We talk about adding more people in and management, and that can be hard to learn sometimes too. So I'm also here to chat through any, management struggles or complications that come up too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Brittany. If anyone else has questions, one, we are going to send out this recording, so don't worry, you can rewatch it at your leisure. And if you have any questions specifically about Healthie, shoot us an email. It's hello@gethealthie.com or reply to the email that we send out to you. And I just want to thank you so much. This was so useful. It was so helpful. I hope that everybody took away some little gems of information and next steps, and that everyone could take the next step in their practice and feel really confident. So invaluable information, Brittany. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks y'all for joining me, and talk to you soon.
Yay. Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.